ISTQB Part 4, that is Fundamentals of Testing. As you aware in a previous video have given, the testing comprises the six followings, that is we have from the starting from the fundamentals of testing until we have the test managements and test tools. Alright, so it starts with the fundamentals of testing. So what are all the things comprises in fundamentals of testing? That's we are going to see in this video tutorial in a detailed explanation. Fundamentals of testing. In fundamentals of testing, it is broadly classified into four categories, that is definition of testing, why testing is mandatory, principles of testing, and the process involved in testing. So of course, if you know these four, you can really come to know that what exactly you are doing when you are doing testing. You can easily map that what you are doing. So even if you are going to a manager level or module lead, or even if you're an employer, you can talk in the way of how you are working with respect to the testing. Say for example, if you are reviewing a document, you can just tell them that I'm walking through the document, or I'm walking through the document, I'm doing inspection with the review. So all these are all technical words that you have or you must to use when dealing with the testing. But of course, nowadays people are not doing as well. They are just doing like a layman testing that should be eradicated completely. For that, ISTQB wanted you to understand and learn the technical concepts that what you are doing in your day-to-day life testing. All right, so we'll start with definition of testing. All right, so we have four categories, and I think in this video tutorial we'll end up with the under till principles of testing, and the next video will be on process of testing. Fine, so we'll start with the definition of testing. See, definition of testing, so simple: the process of using the software or the document with the intention of finding defect under valid condition. So the intention of the every tester should be to get a defects as much as possible. That is, there should be the bug in the software, or there will be the bug that the tester has to find out. That is the main intention of the tester, but it should be on the valid condition. The condition should not exceed. So that is what the, say for example, if you want to drive a vehicle, so if the vehicle range is around 350 or 400 kilometer per hour, so your expectation should be within 400 or 350. It's not like 600. So if you expect 600, then it will always fail. So that's what it means. It should be on the valid condition. So this is the main main definition for the testing. So again, whenever I'm just telling you the explanation, will derive some questions that based on how the ISTQB expects. All right, so here they'll give the question like in some testing and in some testing condition, these are all the conditions they'll give. The requirement they'll give like 400, and they will give the range from 3 below 300, or below 200, below 100, and above 600. So which of these is not defined by the testing? So that will be the common question they may ask. So you can tell like it will be more than 400, because the particular testing may not under the valid condition, but it should be under valid condition. Of course, we have some testing called monkey testing or some other ad hoc testing, which is not in the condition, but it will be mentioned in the requirements as well, to check for the out of boundary conditions. All right, so this is just a definition that I don't want to give you and more details, and make you too bored. All right, so you just regardless, you just understand the testing is a process of using a software document with intention of finding a defect under valid conditions. All right, so why testing is mandatory? So testing is mandatory for any application, that if you're dealing with the company, or if you're dealing with the trusted vendor, the testing should be mandatory, because these are all the reasons. Validated product brings confidence about the quality of the product delivered. Verify all the requirements have met or not. Verify the boundary value conditions, also intermediate value conditions. Reduce the level of risk. Developers can't find their own mistakes. So these are all the conditions why testing is mandatory. Again, these kind of questions will be the direct question in terms of ISTQB. They'll just ask which are all the following or not in the which are all of why the testing is not mandatory, they'll ask. and they'll ask like testers can find their own mistakes, then this will be the answer. So the idea of this ISTQB is you have to understand the concepts. So for understanding the concepts is definitely you have to read these statements. I guess these are all very straight and clear, you can easily understand and you can remember too. All right. Principles of testing. We have 7 principles in testing. Number 1, testing shows presence of defects. So the principles of testing is one of the important concepts in the ISTQB syllabus, and you can expect more questions from this. All right. So anyhow, at the end we'll just draft you from what are all the topics you can get, how many questions and what kind of questions you may get. Everything will be discussed at the end of these tutorials. All right. So there are 7 principles in testing, and principles of testing is an important concept that you should have. Testing shows the presence of defect. Exhaustive testing is not at all possible. Early testing. Defect clustering. Pesticide paradox. Testing is context dependent. Absence of errors fallacy. All right. So only these are all the and these are all the only 7 principles that you are going to see. So of course I wanted you to explain you about how these 7 principles are in depth, so how these really deals with the work environment. All right. So anyhow, we are taking this as just a this screenshot. This is the amazon.in web application, and with respect to this we'll just draft you the 7 principles. But before that, you have to understand all the testing scenarios, all the testing companies may not obey all the 7 principles. All right. So that you will come to know at the end how and where. See, first is the first principle is testing shows presence of defects. That means whenever you're doing testing, the scenarios tells that there will be the defect. So you are doing testing, so you will definitely find the defect. All right. So this is the first principle. The intention of the software testing is to break the software with defects. Software testing reduces the presence of defects at the end customer. So see, you have to remember this point. It will reduce the presence of defect. It will not remove the complete defect. All right, you have to remember this. So testing never ever remove the defect completely. It will just reduces the number of defect presence. All right. So this is also one question you can expect. Software testing mean about presence of defects and doesn't mean about absence of defect. So software testing can ensure that defects are present, but it cannot prove that software is defect free. So that's what from almost these 3 points are similar. Okay, so here they are telling that softwares are not a defect free, and you cannot assure that it's the absence of defect. And here they are telling it is just reducing the presence of defect. So this is what the software, the first principle that is telling. So multiple testing also can never ensure the software is 100% defect free. Testing can reduce the number of defects. So all over this first principle mean that you can reduce the number of defect, or you can report the defect and you can fix it, but you cannot make sure that the software is 100% defect free. This is one of the main principle that is you have to remember. So this is the first principle. Second principle, exhausting testing is not possible. Again, this first and second or somewhat 2 principles are somewhat interlinked. So exhaustive testing is not possible means even though if you are testing your software 24/7 for 1 year or 2 year also, you cannot able to achieve 100% coverage. Means it may be the code coverage, or it may be the statement coverage, or branch coverage, or system testing, unit level, system level, integration level, acceptance level. Yes, it is not at all possible to test 100%. So exhaustive testing means 100% testing. So that's what is second principle is. Exhaustive testing is not possible. Testing is a process of checking all possible inputs, valid as well as invalid. Exhausting testing is not possible because software can never be 100% testable. Testers can only test some test cases that and assume the software is correct, and it will produce the correct output in every test cases. So that is the what are the main functionality that only testers is to test. Apart from that, the performance level, security levels, of course the software will undergo, but there will be no chance of testing 100%. So for your understanding, is just take a Amazon as a website. in that you cannot check each and every character, you cannot check the each and every bits memory how they are occupying. So there will be some limitations that what testers can test. So within that boundary only we can test, so that will never happen to 100%. Also, if the software will test every test cases, then it will take more cost, effort and time. Also, it is not practically possible. So that is what the exhausting testing is not possible. All right. So this is one of the important question that most of the ISTQB questions has been asked in this. So the question will be what which of the following is not a principle of the testing. So the answer will be they will give all the three in out of seven they'll give three principles, and fourth principle they'll give like exhaustive testing is possible, like that they'll give, but it's not possible. This will be the answer. So exhausting testing is not at all possible. Early testing, yeah, this is one of the wonderful technique that the principle holds. So before start execution, that is whenever the developers are developing the code, you are going to analyze the document, that is a requirement document. There itself you can find some mismatches. Say for example, if the input two inputs are combining with the integer or a boolean, the output should be the boolean, but in the output section they may give it is some integer value. So there you can find as a defect, because what developers used to do, they can develop as it is, like they may not notice this and they may expect the both input will be boolean but the output will be integer. So it is a defect. So you can raise this at the early testing, that is at the level of static testing, you can say. So the testing at the requirement phase is the static testing. That is, so the early testing may give you the chance of decrease number of defect as much as possible, and it may also decrease the time and the cost and human effort of the developer as well. So that is what early testing is really recommendable to do. Defect clustering. So in most of your projects this principle may not applicable. The reason is defect clustering means in a software few modules may contain most of the defects. Say for example, it is a kind of Pareto principle to software testing state 80% of the software defect comes from the 20% of the modules. That means only 20% of modules have all these 80% defect. Remaining 80% will have only 20% of defects. So it is not applicable for all the projects that I can tell. That's what at the initial phase itself I told you that this principle, that is software testing principle, may not applicable in all the projects. All right. So say for example, here we have for a clear understanding I'm just giving you, here we have module A, B, C up to module N, and here we have the 2, 5, 14 and 3. So that means this module C holds 80% of the defect comes from the 20% of the module. Say for example, if you make together module B and C, this 20% of the module are giving 80% of the defect. So that is what they are mean. This is called defect clustering, and this is the principle based on the Pareto's principle. But nowadays it's not so applicable in all the companies, because most of the modules they have moderate level of defects. So that yes, of course, you may not rely on this in every time. Then pesticide paradox. So this is one of the important question that you may get, as well as the important concept that you would definitely work. So pesticide paradox is nothing but just imagine if you are raising some issues or if you're raising some defect, you are getting the software, then keep on testing the again and again the same maneuver will never give you the test case fail, or will never make you to get the defect to be found. So that is what the pesticide paradox. So you have to test in a differently to different way. So that is a pesticide paradox method. So that is what all about. So it should not do just same again and again. You have to, it is always recommended to add or modify test cases to different execution to find new defects. This is called pesticide paradox. Testing is a context dependent. Yes, you have to agree that is testing is a context dependent. Say for example, if you are working, so that is a reason if automotive recruiters, they wanted only automotive employees, that is the experience, their past experience should be in automotive. Of course they are not considering all the testers as the same. If you are working for the game testing, you have to rely on game testing, and recruiters wanted only the game testers employees with the previous experience. All right. So even if it is a auto and aero, they don't want the such background. So that is because testing is always a context dependent. So if you're testing the Android application, or if you're testing the web application, so definitely the context is different, the behavior of the testing execution, everything goes different. So that is what it meant. Testing always depends on the context of the software development. Different types of software need to be performed different types of testing. So, correct, right? So if you have to test the vehicle level, you have to drive a vehicle, but for application you don't want to drive anything, you just wanted to access the application. So that is what, for example, the testing of Android application is different from the automotive system or web testing. So this is what meant that testing is context dependent completely. All right. Absence of errors fallacy. When you are testing the software and find it is 99% defect free, but it does not follow the requirement. So for example, if you are just opening, your customer has given you some requirement, and your developer also developed, so you are opening it, there is no hanging, there is no crashing, it's work very good, it works very smooth. You are just giving the username, password, you are opening your tabs here and there, everything is opening fine. But the requirement says you need three tabs. Say for example, username, password, and date of birth. But in the particular application there is no date of birth column. In the same way, you should have the tabs at the right side, but you have the tabs at top or left side. So obviously, also it is a defect free, but it is not matching the requirement. So that is what it is expected. Hence it is always considered fulfill the customer's requirement. That is what absence of errors fallacy. Here the comparison on the requirement, the software deals with dynamic testing or the execution. So this has to be done so that the absence of errors fallacy has to be satisfied in the testing environment. So these are all the 7 principles that I wanted to understand. All right, so in our upcoming videos, that exactly how we are dealing this particular principles when we are working, that we'll see in the next upcoming videos. And the next video tutorial will be on ISTQB part 5, that is a process of testing. That's also one of the such an interesting concept that you should learn. And yes, it is one of the key topic in ISTQB. All right, so catch you in the next video. Just learn it and have fun. We'll get back to you in the next tutorial.